morning, shine, shine, shine. Las Vegas, shine your light on me.
Welcome to Las Vegas Tonight with your award-winning host, Dale Davidson. Dale interviews fascinating guests from top-ranked celebrities to people just like you who have an important story to tell. For more than 15 years, Dale has broadcast every week from the fabulous Las Vegas Strip. He finds the people who really make Las Vegas a one-of-a-kind city and lets the world know just what's happening in this remarkable town. You'll discover why 50 million people visit the entertainment capital of the world every year. Stay tuned for another exciting episode of Las Vegas Tonight.
Welcome to Las Vegas Tonight. I'm your host, Dale Davidson. I am so pleased to have a colleague, a fellow television personality here in Las Vegas. She's very well known. She has a terrific show. We'll talk about the show in a minute. Her full name is Ninon de Vere de Rosa. And we'll call her Ninon, as everybody does, because she is well loved here in her hometown. Now her hometown.
Now my hometown. Thank you. The first person
Ninon,
that said
thanks
that.
For joining us.
Absolutely. This is my honor to be on your show.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Oh, let's talk about that wonderful name. It is so musical.
Well, I was just trying to explain it to you because it's rather long. And
it is.
People say, what is that? And then they put it all up and you got it right. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
De Rosa is that was my married name. My husband, James Anthony de Rosa. De Vere was my father's kind of name that followed through centuries, which Loyola Marymount in Los Angeles checked out, which is De Vere, and that goes back into the 1600s to the royal family.
Wow.
And Loyola checked it out for me and told me the story. I didn't even know.
That's great.
So I was pretty excited. Ooh, I got royalty. And then,
you're in line somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know where. I'm so far in line, I'm never going to make it. And then Ninon was a fascinating story. My mother was in the south of France on this boat going back to England, and so was my father in the south of France. And they actually met on this boat going back to England.
Wow.
And my mother was reading a book called Ninon de L'Enclos, which was a famous society woman in Paris.
Oh.
And so I had a brother born, and then I had a sister. She was Juliet, Aubrey, and then Juliet. And I was for some reason, I was supposed to be a boy. And here it is.
They decided that you are most definitely not a boy.
No, I was definitely not a boy.
And we're glad.
Me too. So I arrived, and they thought, what do we call her? So my mother said, well, let's call her Ninon. So I'm kind of named after when they first met, and my mother reading this book. And I believe my mother was smoking at the time, and it was a lucky strike. So I even love the name of the cigarette.
That is wonderful.
Kind of a pretty story.
That's wonderful. So you got a little Italian in the name, and a little English,
yes,
and a little French.
Yeah, I've got. Yeah. I'm what do they call them? Mongrels or something?
No. We'll just say you're
I'm
royalty.
Different.
You're royalty.
Okay, well, I don't know about that.
Yeah,
but
I've
anyway,
got
thank you.
Kind of a funny story about that. My parents both came from the UK.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, they were back a generation though, so they were first generation. And my father grew up in Scotland, or his family grew up in Scotland.
A wee bonny lad.
Yes, and my mom in England, to the south of England. And they went to the UK to visit their ancestral homeland,
Oh, my goodness.
And my mom went to her castle that her family had grown up in, a beautiful castle. And,
so we both have things in common here.
Yes. And it's now a boys' school. Oh. And my mom said her ancestral name to the owner of the school. He said, "Come in, let me show you all around." Showed him the castle.
How wonderful!
And then my dad said, "And then this is a picture of me where my ancestral homeland." He said, "It's a hovel." which is like a stone house, you know, kind of a
well, that's how
round
they. But
thing.
the stones were this big. I mean, they were humongous.
Yes,
I mean,
they were.
It would never collapse. That's for
right.
sure.
So we have that in common.
There we have definitely have the English in common and the royalty in common. So
very
here we
much.
go.
So let's talk a little bit about your early life, if you don't mind. We'll start with that because we have 3 segments. We're going to get to know Ninon really well. Tell me about your childhood. What was that like?
My childhood was very, very different. My mum and dad had 5 children. I was the middle one.
Yes.
And none of us ever went to school.
Why is that?
Well, it's quite a long story, and I probably wouldn't have said it, but my brother passed away recently, so
Yes.
I can probably talk about it. My father, because my mother and father were so in love, and they met in, I think, 37.
Okay.
1937.
Right.
I'm aging myself. Anyway, and they didn't get married, but they had these children.
Oh, okay.
But also, my father, it was mandatory to go into the war. You know,
Yes.
the 1938 war.
Yes.
And he didn't go.
Oh.
So my mother hid him.
Ah.
So she had the first 3 children, and obviously didn't get married.
Uh-huh.
And then, so when I left home and I went to Somerset House because I wanted to get a passport, I couldn't find me. I wasn't anywhere to be found. And I thought,
that right?
well, this is quite lovely. I'm not even born. So anyway, so I went to the clerk and I asked her, you know, what the problem was. And she said, well, let's go through the years. And I thought, so I was not registered until after the war in 1945.
Oh.
Now you know my age.
So that's
But
wonderful.
yeah, so well, it was, you know, to sort of be registered. But
Yeah.
I left. We weren't educated, so we couldn't go to school.
Right.
I presume because my father should have been, you know,
in the
how did he
war.
have all these children during the war? I mean, come on. So, it was rather, you know, it was rather hard for him. So we never went to
Unique.
school. So
Yeah.
I really, truly didn't have an education. I left home at 16 with $5 in my hand, and here I am today.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you've had such a fascinating life.
Incredible.
When did you leave Great Britain?
Well, I didn't. I left 3 times. I left in and to go to Beirut. I went to London and started modelling.
Yes.
Well, when I was in Torquay, which is where I'm from, I worked 20 hours a day for a whole year to save up £100 to move to London. So that I saved this money. Went to London, lived with Grandma, and Grandma charged me rent every week. Nobody ever gave me a break. It was like this torture. But I didn't know that because I was so used to paying for everything anyway, so it didn't make any difference
So it was
to me.
okay.
Oh, for me it's fine. And then I had these photographs taken, which I spent £35 of the £100 to get these photographs taken so that I could go into modelling because that's what I wanted to do.
Sample photos.
Yes, I had to have those, the sample thing. And so then I moved up to London, and of course that's history then. And then I got an agency. Ivy Corganon was my agent for modelling and everything else. And this guy came along, this Hungarian, Charlie Henches, a Russian, I think he was Jewish, I'm not sure, but he was Russian. And he wanted this, he wanted this underwater swimmer. Well, I was not an underwater swimmer, never mind swimming. And so I went for the audition. Nothing to do with the act, nothing to do with entertainment. It was all to do with going to Beirut for 2 years. I thought, wouldn't that be exciting?
Yes.
Go to the Middle East for a couple of years. And I was all of, 22, 23 or out.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Sounded good to you.
It was good to me. So I go for the audition, but I go as a model. So I got the hair on, I got all the makeup on. And all the others are no makeup and dressed, I don't know how, but I was all dressed up and everything. And I looked at them and I thought, oh, what a funny audition. Not realizing that what the audition really was. But at least I had a bikini with me. And he disappeared, and I knew he was going underneath to watch the people swimming underwater.
Okay.
And I thought, so they sort of said, well, you want to go? And I said, no. I said, you all go first. I wanted them to go first so I could see what I had to do.
You had no experience?
No. So I dive into the water and I do this dive and I'm sort of like this, smiling away. And lo and behold, he chooses me.
Is that right?
Yep.
Wow.
And they were beautiful. They could do all sorts of act. I could do nothing. So he trained me for 6 months in London, and off to Beirut I went. And it was an incredible experience, a very different life.
Yes.
They got guards at either side of Beirut. which is the capital. Beirut, so anytime you go in or out, or especially when you come in, passport this and this and this. And, because the casino was outside of Beirut itself.
Oh, okay.
It was the Casino de Lebanon, and the show was called Mewi.
Wow.
So that's, anyway, so then I came back from that after 2 years, and then I went off to, my agent wanted me to go to Jamaica with this other girl and do some shows and different things there, so I went to Jamaica.
As a model this time?
As a model this time.
Okay.
So then I went as a model, and then I went from there to Miami.
Oh, wow.
So then I
First time in the U.S.
First time in the U.S.,
Yeah.
yes.
What were you doing in Miami? Were you modeling there?
Well, I got lucky. I got really, I presume I was lucky, yeah, I think so. I got into a film, and I don't, no, I was staying with this girl, and she was going for an audition for this, and I asked her if I could go along with her, and they said, yeah, she didn't really like the idea, because I was very, I was pretty, and I was sort of, you know.
You might get picked. Yeah.
So, and I didn't want that to happen, but anyway, I went along, and lo and behold, they picked me, and it was a film with Rita Hayworth and Stephen Oliver, and it was called The Grove.
Wow.
And I was Rita Hayworth's understudy. So I was in the whole film, the whole movie.
Wow.
And also Bill Griffey gave me a couple of parts in it as well, because I was there, and you know they always need extra parts for doing things and everything.
Sure.
So I got into this movie. I don't know if it ever came out, but, and then in Miami, yeah, it was fabulous. And I met Freddie Otash, and I'm sure a lot of you out there know who Freddie Otash was. He's passed away since. He was one of the biggest private eyes in America.
Really?
Very well known. Yes. I don't know well known, good or bad, but
maybe notorious, maybe famous.
Yeah, but, fabulous guy. So I was with him, moved in with him, and then the two of us were dating for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And from there I went to Los Angeles. We both drove out together from Miami.
Okay.
I believe he had a store called Lily Dashay. You all know Lily Dashay too, the millinery.
Yes.
She had a hat store in New York. She was very well known, Lily Dashay. He had that establishment, but I think it was a cover-up for something he was spying on. I don't know. Don't know. But I think
he was tight-lipped about it.
Yeah. Oh, he had to be.
Yeah.
I believe, because he used to do different things, and I would work the store as well. And then we both drove out to Los Angeles, and we parted.
Oh, okay.
So then I was in Los Angeles, and from Los Angeles I got married and all that stuff, and then I came to Vegas.
Oh, okay. Now in L.A., were you doing anything in show business there?
I was doing a lot there.
You might be out there again soon.
I worked for Giorgio's in Beverly Hills because I couldn't get much work because I was English, and that time they didn't have the English or the accents, mostly American. So I worked at Giorgio's, Fred Heyman's establishment on Rodeo Drive. So I always liked the top things. I always liked to be in the,
beautiful place.
And I lived in Beverly Hills. And then from there I went to work for Jay Eisenberg, and he was he had his own magazine.
Oh, yeah.
He actually had his publishing company, and one of his clients was the Penthouse magazine, which I helped that. But also he had the California Men's Stylist magazine, and he gave me that. He said, you take charge of that, and you look after it. I said, okay. So I used to do a lot of the writing in it and everything else and what have you. Yeah. And from there, actually through that, I met my husband.
Tell us about him.
Oh, that's a long story. But I met my husband. He only wanted to date me every 2 weeks.
That's interesting.
That was very interesting, and I said no. Either you're going to date me or not date me.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, the poor guy, he'd always been married. You know, he went from one marriage to another marriage. He had 6 children and 2 ex-wives, and he was going through a divorce, which I didn't know at the time.
Right.
Anyway, then I found out, and I said, I'm not going to marry you. I'm not going to date you because you're married still.
You're still married.
Until you show me the papers you're not married. And he did. Came out in 1975. He came out with the papers, and he was divorced.
Yeah.
And we dated a little bit, and then we got engaged, and then I moved in with him, and then we got married, and then the 6 children entered the arena.
And did you get along with these 6 children?
I got along with them because of my husband.
Yes.
But they had a knife in my back.
Really?
Yes, they all did. And they were all very jealous and envious, and I never knew why, because that was not my way of life.
Yes.
I was always very honest and did the right thing that I thought I should do.
Yes.
And so it was very difficult.
That's a shame.
And then my husband passed away in 2004.
Yes.
I have not yet out there. I've not yet found a replacement. It's not that I'm looking for a
You can find her.
I'm findable. If there's any such word in the dictionary, I'm findable.
And would you marry again if
Yes,
given the
I would.
opportunity?
Yes, I would. If it was the right man.
Yeah.
I loved me. Oh, I had the greatest marriage anyone could have.
Really?
I had a beautiful, beautiful marriage.
Oh, that's
You know,
nice
I'm not
to hear.
saying that, you know, we didn't have our arguments and didn't have our things, but he was right for me, I was right for him. Obviously, the other two wives weren't right for him, obviously.
Yes.
But at least he had 3 children from each one of them.
Yes.
And I'm not against any of the children. We just didn't get on. I'm not against
That
them
happens.
at all. They have their lives, they have their thing. But it was very hard. But I think it's very hard for a woman or a man to get into a relationship, you know, with other children.
Yes.
I think there's always that kind of, you know.
Yeah.
Unless they've both got children and they both mix, that might be easier.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't have.
It could be, yeah. I'm in my second marriage, and I had 3 sons with my first marriage, and my wife came with what I call my bonus son, another boy.
So you have all 4 boys.
I have 4 boys, and we get along famously. And although my second wife was a widow, and so I was stepping into a role that I think my bonus son didn't really like at the time, because he was the little man then, you know.
Well, because he became the husband.
Yes.
He came to look after everything.
Yes, he did.
Probably felt that he wasn't doing a right job, and that's why she wanted to get married, because he wasn't doing the right thing.
That could be. I never thought of that.
It's funny. Well, it's funny. A friend of mine just said to me that he recently got married, and his daughter's she's not very well and everything else. And I wanted to talk to him because she could not be well because he's remarried again.
That could be. Yes.
And sometimes men don't understand that, or even women don't understand that kind of part of it. It's a very tricky part.
It is.
So it's not that I didn't like the children, we just didn't get on. You know, that's all it was. Nothing wrong with them. They're fine. You know, good luck to all of them.
Yes.
You know.
And you're an expert in relationships. We'll talk about that in our next segment.
Okay.
That's a part of your life right now.
Yes.
We're going to be back with the lovely and talented Ninon right after this. Hi, I'm Dale Davidson, host of Las Vegas Tonight. You know, radio has an enduring place in the heart of America. Sometimes it's music that can enliven your spirit or keep you company when you need some. More often for me, it's just been the right spoken word or two that can quiet my mind and soul. Radio brings me a reassuring word in the quiet of night or a welcoming voice early in the morning as I shake off the night's sleep and find my way into God's purpose for my day. And always, I find the best radio station is the one that brings me the best news, the gospel of Jesus Christ. My favorite radio station is KKVV in Las Vegas, Nevada. It's still right where it's been for years, at 1060 on the AM dial, hovering over Sin City like a gospel airship, broadcasting the good news of the abounding love that Jesus Christ has for every single one of us. No matter who you are or where you live, you can receive God's Word via the KKVV Gospel Airship. Just go to kkvv.com and click on Listen Live. KKVV is using all the tools that God's provided them, like podcasting and video streaming and video on demand, to produce programs that lift up our fellow believers and save the lost. If you feel a calling to speak to others about Jesus Christ on your very own show, pick up the phone and call the station. They'll be happy to tell you how. Call KKVV today at 702-731-5588 or drop them an email at kkvvradio@hotmail.com. Please join me in becoming part of the KKVV family. You'll be glad you did. And welcome back to Las Vegas Tonight. We're with the lovely Ninon, who has just fascinating stories to tell, and we're going to let her tell us even more. Let's finish up the conversation about your husband for a second.
Yeah.
So you would recommend marriage
100%.
wholeheartedly.
Yes, but I think you have to really cover all bases, and I think a lot of women especially are afraid to ask a question about him, whoever him's going to be, the husband, and not to be afraid. I will probably give an advice, because if you're afraid that it's going to break something up or something's going to happen, then it's good you do that.
Yes.
Because if it's not going to happen before you're married, it's going to happen after you're married.
Yeah.
And that could, so especially, I think the younger generation, definitely, because I dealt with them for 16 years, I think the younger generation should not rush into a marriage, and marriage isn't all sort of, running around and drinking and cell phones and all this. There is, and all that other stuff that goes on. There is an actual life within two people, and I think they need to actually understand that a little bit more, although maybe sometimes it's not nice to talk, or they don't want to talk about it, but they should.
Yes.
I think it's very definite that they should, just to keep the marriage, stable, and don't sort of, well, I'm divorcing you. I think those words are a little bit too strict sometimes.
Yes.
And try to hold back. Whatever you say is there. It's always going to be there. So be careful what you say. You can't take it back.
You cannot.
No, you cannot take it back. So I advise that, especially to the younger generation, because they're very delicate and they don't know. And the right man is out there.
Yes, that's encouraging, I'm sure. One thing that I've noticed time and time again with people I've heard of, they never discuss children. And they get married, and one wants to have children, and the other doesn't.
Yeah,
it's like, how does that happen?
I don't know. I never had children for several reasons. One was my husband, and one was both of us. We couldn't, although he had 6 children, he couldn't have children anymore, and then I couldn't have children. Well, I don't know what the case was, but I just say, God, you probably didn't want me to have children, but you wanted me to take care of all these children. I think that's what he had in mind. Because he's given me so many children to look after that I've come to that conclusion. So I'm happy with it. I'm comfortable.
You're an expert in relationships. Tell us about how you got into that field.
Into that field. Well, I was living in, I'm not bragging, but I was living in Bel Air at a beautiful 8,000 square foot home in Bel Air. My local pub was the Bel Air Hotel. We had a very vast life. I started out in a very small home, $35,000 home in Northridge with my husband.
Yes.
We built things up.
Wow.
I was always very good at kind of making money. I could always make money for other people, not me though. I never quite understood that. But
that's a gift. That's
how it goes. And so we made a tremendous amount of money. We're able to move to Bel Air because of what we did. And because of my life and how my life had sort of been, halfway through my marriage, I was married 29 years, halfway through it, I was thinking, I don't know, I'm losing my identity, and I didn't want to lose my identity. I didn't want to lose my personality as to who I was, because I'd done all these sort of outrageous things, and living in Jamaica and doing all this crazy stuff, and films and fashion shows and pictures and commercials, and been very, very successful, though I didn't think I had been.
That's
I know now. I did not think I was successful at all.
Really?
No. Until when I moved to Bel Air, and I thought, hang on a second, this all pretty big. And then my brother, because my mum and dad were in the antique dealers, so we were in the antique business. My brother, who passed away, he was in the antique business. I got him to ship over for this house, because it was awfully large. I got him to ship over a 40-foot container of antiques.
Wow.
So we filled our house up with antiques. I didn't even ask my husband if I presume he liked antiques. He did actually.
So much for asking questions.
Yeah, so but I assume because he bought them and he paid for it all. We paid for it.
That's fun.
It was fun. So for halfway through all this, and I thought, I really would like to share how I started out with no education, no nothing. I didn't know a thing when I left home. Nothing. I knew nothing. We were very secluded. We never had friends as, little kid friends. We never had friends. We just were amongst ourselves because my mum and dad had to keep it that way because of him, because my father. We didn't know.
Yeah, you didn't understand.
No, we had no idea. No idea. Anyway, so I thought, I'm going to start a show. So I started a show called Kids Talk. I started it out of public access.
Oh, okay.
In Santa Monica.
Okay.
And I went down there and I had a month's training to be a producer and a host. And I didn't understand that, but I did it well. because that was always I was able to do things.
Yes.
So I did this. So I had my first show, and my first show I started with children from 3 years old to 12. Now, have you ever tried to interview a 3-year-old?
No.
So anyway, they were all very lovely, but I had 12 of them. I had 12 of these kids.
Uh-huh.
And I called this show Children from Divorced Families. And the only reason I did that show first, because I had 6 children from a divorced family, from 2 divorces. So I thought this would be easy for me.
Yes.
Well, what a mistake that was. Yeah, well, that's about all I knew. I knew the subject, all these kids. But one little girl, she was 7 years old, I forget her name, and she came up, she had her back actually to the cameras, and she kind of walked over to me. I'm sitting there, and she walked, and I didn't stop her. I thought, do what you want to do. And she said, I think my parents got divorced because of me. And I looked at and I thought to myself, I have a show.
Yes. Yes.
And that was the first show. And then from then I did another show, Deaf and Hearing Impaired Children. And everybody said, how can you interview deaf children? I said, well, interpreters. I'll get an interpreter, which I did. And I started that.
Oh, that's fascinating.
And it was fascinating. And the reason I did the show and the reason I started it was because I had such an experience with my life coming from nothing. No, my parents were highly intelligent.
Yes.
Just because my father couldn't go out anywhere didn't mean to say he wasn't intelligent. He was an antique dealer.
Yeah,
and he did Sotheby's and Phillips and Neal and did all the hot places where he sold stuff. They're too highly intelligent, but we didn't have a life.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a life with our mum and dad, but,
that was it.
But that was it. So I felt that I wanted to give the children out there, I wanted to let them know that it didn't matter who you were, where you came from, what religion, what color, what language, did not make any difference. Because if I was able to be where I was in Bel Air with a 7,000 square foot home,
yes,
a Rolls Royce, a BMW, and a chauffeur-driven car.
Yes.
So I figured that if that's where I got, and if that's what I could do from where I came from, and I never went to school, so when I left home I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
I knew nothing, because it wasn't really, but I knew the fundamentals of going to auctions, because we used to go to auctions all the time, all over to the manor houses and buy antiques and buy stuff, and Dad would sell it. So I learned a different part of life than the normal of reading and math and algebra. I don't know what all that stuff was. I had no idea. But I knew another side. So doing this show, I was able to give these children a platform. I did it for 16 years. I did about 400, 500 shows. And I won. I'm going to brag now.
Please do. Please do.
I won. Actually, as of now, I have just about 125 awards.
Congratulations.
Yeah. And I had 2 awards from President Bush.
Wow.
And then I had all these other awards.
Congratulations.
And I don't say they're really my awards. They really belong to the children, because it was their voices that I would ask the questions and I would help them. I learned, this is how I learned not to because I don't pre-interview any of the people I interview now.
Okay.
I don't pre-interview anybody. I just know what they do. The reason I started that was because if I pre-interviewed the kids, they said, well, you asked me that yesterday. This is not going to work.
Kids say what's ever on their minds.
They do.
Out it comes.
And then, of course, I went, from 11, 12-year-old to 18, and then that was my show. And it was a fabulous show, and I gave them all of them. God bless all of them out there. Whoever still knows me, because I started that in 1996, and I finished it, I don't know, in 2008 or around that time.
Yeah.
The reason I stopped it was because I'm doing internet TV shows.
Right.
And I was afraid of if these kids said something, and I've got to start cutting out this and cutting, and then I'm going to get a mom or a dad or somebody out there that's going to sort of not like it because it's going to go on the internet, it's going to go worldwide, and I didn't want lawsuits or anything like that. So I thought I better just stick to over 18.
Yes.
I didn't want to have any problems.
Yeah, it's you have to be very careful.
You have to be careful on that. Not that anything happened to me. I mean, I did it for 16 years.
That's wonderful.
And I did it in Beverly Hills High School for 5 years. I filmed out of.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did.
Wow.
I filmed out of there for 5 years, and I filmed all over Los Angeles. I went to. I was in Paris. I was all over the place. Yeah,
That's
did
fascinating.
a lot of out-of-state.
What would you say, having interviewed hundreds and hundreds of children, what would you say they had in common? Did they have anything in common?
You know, there was a show I did for quite a few times. I did a show, I think it was Gaslight Foundation. I'm not quite sure. This woman that had this foundation was quite different. And I interviewed her children 2 or 3 times, and the reason being was because she taught her children that she would help. She had this class, she would help these children, and she would get the children to actually address the parents rather than the parents addressing the children.
Really?
She switched it around, and her results for a family unit was amazing.
Really?
Because the children, a lot of the, excuse me, a lot of the children, you know, from Mexican families or different families all over, and she found that the communication between mum and dad and the children, the mum and dad didn't quite know the questions or to help the children. So the children started asking the parents or talking to the parents, you know, go home, talk to your mum and dad about this and about this and about this. And they started doing that. And I thought that was a great idea.
That's a wonderful idea.
It was a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
There's one thing I've always said over the time, and I always remember this man, he was divorced and he had this son, he had this boy. And I said, you know, there's one thing you must remember as a parent, just listen.
Yes.
That was one of my greatest statements. And they say, well, why just listen? I said, because a child comes up, they give you a story, or they're trying to give you a story, you interrupt them, and you now start telling your story about what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And the child, you know, the attention span of a child is like half a second. so you have to make sure you keep the attention of this child. And I said, so just be quiet. And that's why I say, just listen. Listen to your child. Sit back a little bit. You'd be surprised what you will find out.
Wow.
About your child.
Wow.
And I know they stutter and they stutter and they take a long time to tell a story, but that's a child.
Yes.
And that's what you're there as a parent. Be a parent.
That's wonderful.
Be a parent.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, if this generation, please, please, please listen to your children. And mums and dads, please step up to the totem pole. Please take care of your kids, because you're the first person that they know, and they'll know the rest of their lives, and they will have respect for. But please listen to them and help them. Don't ignore them and don't call them stupid. Never call a child stupid.
Yes.
It registers in their head. It's something that registers. You keep calling a child stupid, the child will be stupid.
Yes. Yeah, God bless you for noticing that.
Yeah, I think we should spend more attention. Even other people spend more attention. Teachers, anybody, spend more attention. These are, if you don't know by now, our future leaders.
Yes, yes.
We're older. What are we doing? We're leading. We're
That's
still
right.
leading.
Yeah, we're leaving the scene.
We're leaving the scene. Well, we're leaving, but we're also leading. We're still leading.
Yes, that's true.
We're still leading, helping them. You know, whoever, it doesn't matter.
Yes.
And hey, people out there, be more friendly to each other.
Oh God, that's really a wonderful overall statement, not only to make about children, but adults one-to-one.
Yeah,
listen
please
to each
listen.
other.
Yeah, listen to each other.
Be nice to one another.
You know, don't take on your story. Listen to their story first. Then you can talk about your story.
Yeah, that's what I try to do in my show, is to ask a question and then shut up and listen.
Well, you've certainly done that. You certainly did that with me, that's for sure.
Well, you've been fascinating. You've been fascinating. It's amazing, but our second segment is almost up, and I got some really serious stuff I want to delve into in the third segment, particularly in talking about your faith.
Yes, I would love that.
So let's jump away for just a second. We'll come back to Ninon right after this.
What is the Bible? What does it say? Why do people care about it? And what does it have to do with you? Christians claim the Bible was authored by God through human hands to share His story and help us understand who He is. It's a diverse collection of literature, including historical accounts, poetry, stories, and wisdom. It contains mind-blowing adventures like men being thrown into a fire-filled furnace, yet they weren't burned. It speaks of an old man who is lowered into a lion's den, only to be supernaturally protected and not eaten. It also tells the story of a little girl who had died, yet miraculously came back to life. The Bible is one book that contains 66 smaller books. It was written over a period of 1,500 years and authored by over 40 different people that range from shepherds to doctors, scholars, farmers, and kings. Completed 2,000 years ago, historians say it's one of the most reliable books on the planet. Over 10,000 manuscripts have survived the centuries. Compare that to only 235 known manuscripts of Shakespeare's First Folio. There have been over 5 billion copies printed worldwide, making it the most reproduced book in the world. The Bible is divided into two sections, the Old Testament and the New Testament. The Old Testament is well known for its early history of the world and insight into life, giving wisdom such as don't murder and love one another. Other sections are a bit racy, such as your breasts are like two fawns, twins of a gazelle. The first 4 books in the New Testament tell the story of Jesus through the perspectives of 4 of his closest friends. The rest of the New Testament is stories and letters revealing what Jesus' closest followers did after his time on earth. God used average people to heal all kinds of diseases and drive out demons. Many of Jesus' followers were killed because they dared to preach his message. Jesus claimed to be the human manifestation of God's unfailing love for humanity and the secret for true inner peace. He gave hope to the hopeless, love to the unloved, and then gave his life to bring never-ending life to everyone who would believe in him. That's where you come in. Beware, reading this book will change you. As you read it, its message of hope will come alive in you. That's what it's designed to do. Why not give it a shot and see for yourself what it says? It just might surprise you.
Welcome back to Las Vegas Tonight. I'm your host, Dale Davidson. The lovely and talented and remarkable Ninon is with us. And she's had fascinating stories. Right away, I noticed that we're going to have you back and do at least one more part, maybe 2 or 3 more parts, because we're only touching the surface of a fascinating life. Let's talk a little bit about your faith. When you were growing up, was it a faith-filled household, or did that come later in your life?
It was never a faith-filled household.
Really? Yeah.
God was never talked about. Jesus was never talked about. Nothing was ever talked about.
Really?
But I happen to have loved my grandmother, which was my father's mother.
Yeah.
And I would go over to her house every so often when we moved back. We moved around a lot.
Yeah.
But when we moved back to Torquay, my grandmother lived there, and I would go and I liked talking to her, and I liked to be with her.
Yeah.
And she was a Roman Catholic. And she tried to get me to be a Catholic, and it didn't work. But I truly was not a bad person anyway.
Yeah.
I had something within me that I did not know about the faith. I don't know what it was, and that did not come until much, much, much later. Later.
Yes.
God gave us this body and gave us this sort of, we have to deal with what we have, and this is actually all we have to deal with.
Yes.
We have nothing else to deal with.
Yes.
When we get this in line of where it should be or shouldn't be, or where you want it or what you want to do, that's up to you.
Yeah.
It doesn't really make any difference to it shouldn't make any difference to anybody else, because anybody else's opinion of who you are and what you are could be very dangerous. So
Sure.
I think so anyway. But so I started touching on God when my husband had passed away.
Yes.
And I was introduced through my stepdaughter, who I still talk to, Timmy, which I like very much.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so there's one that I like. There's one I get on with.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, I get on with her well.
That's good to
but
hear.
I've known her since she's 10 and a half, so it's a little different it's a very different relationship than the others. The others were all grown up, and they had their little, I don't know what it was. But Timmy and I had our problems too, but we're here now, and that now is fine. Anyway, she wanted us to go. He wasn't. My husband's still alive, because she wanted him to go to this church. It was a black church. And it was a four-square church.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just down by the, I think it's 205 freeway, I don't know what freeway, 405 freeway.
Right.
Anyway, so as we're going down there, I had just had something done with my face. I think I just had a peel or something, so I had a hat on and everything else. So I was comparing this church, because I hadn't been to church. So I was trying to find out what this church was, and churches in England. So I said, could I walk up to him and ask him to sort of, bless me and everything else? And can I walk up and, oh, no, Ninon, you can't do that. So, and I thought, oh, okay, fine, at least I know, right?
Sure.
So we get to the church, because it's like 99% all black, which doesn't bother me at all. I don't care about color at all. It doesn't make any difference to me.
Yeah, that's great.
Oh, no, I don't. Or language, anything. So we're sitting way in the back. And I see this young guy, and this young guy, he's probably about 38, 40 years old, and he's preaching away. He was absolute Bishop McClendon.
Yeah.
Still preaching to this day, and I love you. I love this guy, Bishop McClendon. And to this day I love him. And I'm looking at this, and then he's asked people to come down and sort of get healed. And I thought, well, that's just what I was asking about. Cool. So I thought, well, can I actually... So I jump up, because I wasn't shy at that time. So I jump up and I walk down this aisle, and I'm over here at this aisle, and he's way over there. And if you believe in Jesus, you believe in God.
Sure.
What happened was amazing. I'm standing here, and I've got the hat on, I've got the coat, and I'm not looking, I haven't got much makeup on. The whole thing opens up, and it all opens like this. All the people.
Yeah.
And there's the bishop. He literally walks from there. He doesn't know who I am. He walks straight up to me.
Wow.
And blesses me.
A God thing.
Well, I don't know what that was, but it was definitely something.
Yeah.
Now, looking on that, I'm going through my life that happened way, way before this time. Of what people did for me. And how things opened up. And as I started thinking about this thing, I started thinking, this happened before. Because everyone says, well, Ninon, how did you get where you are? Yeah. And I've always said, I have no idea. I have no idea why. My husband he didn't have any money, he had a brain. My mum and dad didn't have any money, they had a brain. And then there's me. And I was told I didn't have a brain, but I found out I did have a brain, and I do have a brain. Actually, it does quite work sometimes, not all the time. So then I'm looking through my life, and I met my husband, has a divorce, we have a $35,000 home, and we end up in a $3 million home in Bel Air. So then I start looking at all these different things of actually, where was God and where was Jesus? Because I believe when I talk to Jesus, I talk to the Father as well. They're always both together. They come as a pair for me. Yes. Because the Father never wants you to leave his Son out. Yes. Ever. Yes. And Jesus.
And the Holy Spirit.
And the Holy Spirit and all that goes with it. So I'm looking at all this, and I'm thinking, and he became a very good friend of mine, and I ended up sitting in the second row, because that's where I wanted to be. Because that's where I always want to be. I don't want to be back there somewhere. Yeah. I want to see what's going on and what's happening. Sure. So that was my introduction. So I truly believe that Jesus and my Father in heaven have been behind me all this time. Wow. Majority of the time I didn't know. But now I've kind of recognized it, and I pray a lot. But I think it's definitely whatever you put into life, I don't care what it is, you get out. And if you aren't in line with you, because this is all you have to deal with, I don't have to deal with anything else. This is all I have to make sure is in order. Because once this is in order, then I can help everybody out there. Yes. But if I'm not in order, how can I help?
Yes.
I can't.
Yes. And I think that's a good thing for adults to know in general.
I don't be afraid of it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Excuse me for putting my earring on. I'm not going to be showing just one earring.
You did that gracefully. Speaking of gracefully, have you ever had any experiences with your show or your shows where you had a guest you just couldn't handle?
Never.
Never?
Never.
That's wonderful.
Never.
Yeah.
No. I've had quiet ones.
Yeah.
And I've had a couple of children on at times, even the children, because I know how to handle them on set, and whether
yeah.
they talk or don't talk doesn't matter, because you can still talk to them. You
Sure.
don't lose your voice. I think always, I'm going to give a shout out to all the hosts out there. Remember that if anything goes down, just keep talking. Just keep talking, because you are the host.
That's right.
And you can't let one single second go by without something happening.
Yeah,
I don't care what it is, but something has to happen.
Sure.
Don't be embarrassed. My earring fell off. I put it back on again. Big deal. What are you going to do? I mean, so I think they get too nervous and too worried and don't. But most of my guests, majority of my guests, I give you all of you 100%. They've all been very, very nice to me. I've had a couple. I think there's only one person didn't want to have the show on air,
right?
And so I said that's no problem. Another woman was getting a divorce, and she had a child on. And that was funny with the child. We only did the show because of the child, because they wanted the child on the show. So I said, well, the parents have to come on as well. So we did that, and they wanted that show taken off as well. Otherwise, never had a show. Never.
That's wonderful.
Never. And even the 16 years with the children, there was nothing I had to take out of what the children said. Nothing.
Wow.
They never said anything bad. Never. It was amazing.
You had a gift, to bring that out of those kids. You had to have a gift. God gave you a gift.
Well, that's what that's exactly, when God put me into Jesus and the Father, I always had it.
Yeah.
It's just that I was not brought up to deal with it or to be with it or to be there. But I always had this gracious part of life with people, and I always ended up meeting the top people, always. I mean, I know Esther Williams, I know Frank Sinatra. I had a lovely conversation with him. There's thousands of them. Rod Stewart.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Do you miss Beverly Hills and Hollywood at all?
Not at all.
Is that right?
I never miss anything, because I always think that, back to Jesus and my Father in heaven, he always wants you to be in a place. And I don't think it makes any difference whether it's revolved around money or whether it's around... I don't think that kind of makes any difference. He's going to put you and let you be where you want to be, but he's got me here for a purpose.
Yes.
And maybe it's for the entertainment people, because I'm doing this show with all the entertainment people. So maybe I'm giving them a little crutch, a little something to help them along this way.
Let's plug your show too. Tell us how we can, the name and how we can watch it, and what's your profile on that.
Okay, I have two shows. I have Vegas Live with Ninon. I'm 7 years with that one.
Right, I know about that one.
Started out with a guy called John. That's doing extremely well. You can reach that on. We have our own YouTube station, which is obviously Vegas Live with Ninon on YouTube. We're also on Facebook, on Instagram, all the social media platforms.
That's great.
And I'd like to, but it's doing extremely well now. The other show, Ninon Speaks, is on Zoom. Started that because of the epidemic. COVID-19.
Okay.
And so I started that with another girl, and she's in Portland, Oregon, and we do it through Zoom. And that's been going a year and a half, and that's doing very, very well. We've won 11 awards for that show in a short time.
That's a very short time.
And that show is also on Roku.
Okay, what do you talk about on that show?
Now, that show I talk about, actually it's similar to the same thing, but I just interviewed someone from Paris, so I can this particular show, Ninon Speaks. Actually, Ninon Speaks has been going around, I started it in 2005, but it was a private thing where I have people come to my home or Skype or anything, and I would help them actually with their problems and their troubles.
I see.
So I would help them with that. So it was more of a show of helping people. It still is helping people, but also giving them, who they are, what they are. And everybody, after I interview them, I ask them to give them their social media platform, give the email, wherever they can be reached. It's out there. So I let everybody I like everybody meeting everybody.
You're very open.
Very open. Wonderful. I have nothing. Why not?
Yes.
Give it.
And you have such a great personality. I'm going to ask you a favor. Okay. That's your camera, and you know about looking in the camera.
I do.
Give us about 2 or 3 minutes, whatever you feel comfortable with, talking about the importance of having faith, the importance of having Jesus in your life, and anything else you want to say on that subject.
I will, because I think the children of today are very spiritual, but they don't feel they have to go to church to present it. And I think that is okay. It's nice to go to church, though, but I think to try to do... and this is all generations, Try to stop talking bad about other people. What a waste of time that is. It doesn't bring anything to yourself except your probably insides are probably reeking with anger, and it's really making you sick and it's making you ill, and then you wonder why have I got this headache? Because you've just been doing something you shouldn't have been doing, is talking about somebody else. We're in a time of our life with this COVID-19. Whether we believe in it or we don't believe it, it is there, or it was there. I think I'm going to say it was there. But, you know, winter's upon us already, though we don't seem to feel it in Vegas. But it is with us, and the COVID-19 is going down. So I think we should be less sort of worried about it and more concerned about what's going on with our economy, our gas prices, all these ships in Long Beach and California, and you know, and they're all wondering why the shelves are empty. Well, they're empty because all the food is sitting on these ships in the ocean, because we've got all these people not bothering. Come on, let's loosen up this world a little bit. We're all living here. Now, if it wasn't for people, these things wouldn't be happening. So it's people that are making this happen. So I think bringing faith into it and understanding, you don't have to, you know, go to church if you don't want to. I think it's better if you do, but it doesn't, you know, but have that faith, trust in, you've got to trust in something. Trust in God, trust in Jesus, and obviously put a good word out there. If there's going to be a time to do something wrong, or you're going to do something bad, don't do it. Think twice. Mm-hmm. There's only one person it affects, is yourself. And then God gets upset, Jesus gets upset, and the person that you're ranting about really is upset. But most of all, you're upset. And if you want to be faithful and you want to be, you want to have a good life, watch what you do out there. But try to be nice, especially to our kids. Don't call them stupid, don't call them idiots. This buries in their mind, they're young, and they absorb, they're like sponges, they absorb it. Just be careful what you say to your kid, because they really do affect on that. I dealt with them for 16 years. I do know what kids think. And they're beautiful. One thing they definitely are, and don't forget this, they are our future leaders of the world. So let's plant the seeds in them of what we want of the world. Okay? And try to pray a little bit. Even if it's once a week, it's okay. Better every day. Maybe 2 or 3 times a day.
We all need it. We all need it.
We all need something.
Yes.
And if you have nothing, if you're single and you're alone and you have no friends, you have nothing, you're never alone.
Wow.
You're never, ever
true.
alone, because
Good
you always
word.
have God and you have Jesus. You have them. You always have them. They're always
word.
there for you. And all you have to do, no one's watching you. You can do it in your own house. Nobody sees you, except he does.
Oh, God bless you. Ninon, thank you so much. Isn't she delightful? She was so delightful. Thank you for coming on the program.
Absolutely loved it. Thank you very much, Dale. It was amazing. Thank you.
Wow, what a great guest. And we got to have you back.
Okay, I'll come back.
You have more to say on this.
Yeah, I have a lot to say. Oh, yeah, don't get me into politics. Oh, my goodness.
We'll do it next time.
Next time.
Ninon has been a great guest, and we so appreciate her coming on Las Vegas tonight. And as I try to remember to say each and every time we do this program, when it comes to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, please walk with Him. God bless you.
A What gave Joseph perseverance? What did he see in that well? A future of uncertainty? A life of fear and pain? Yet even when he was sold, he never gave up. Even after he was wronged, he did what was right. Even when he was all alone, he chose to believe. How did he find the will to carry on? Was it the promise, the dream, or maybe it was his faith in God that helped him? Despite his circumstances, God used Joseph to influence the world. His story is a reminder that God is never far from us, that He is always in control, and He is always working, even when we don't see it.
Morning shine, shine, shine. Las Vegas, shine your light on me.
You've been watching Las Vegas Tonight with your host, Dale Davidson. We hope you've enjoyed this edition of our show. We so appreciate your loyalty to our program. To keep Las Vegas Tonight on the air, please go to our website, vegassaints.org, and click the Donate button. To send a check or money order, please make it out to Dale Wynn Davidson Ministries and mail it to 9030 West Sahara Avenue, Suite 255, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89117. To suggest a guest to appear on the show or any other suggestions or questions, write to Dale at dalewdavidson@yahoo.com or call him at 702-480-3989.